Are you ready to change your habits, sculpt your destiny, and light up your path to greatness? Welcome to the epicenter of transformation. This is Mick Unplugged. We'll help you identify your because, so you can create a routine that's not just productive, but powerful. You'll embrace the art of evolution, adapt strategies to stay ahead of the game, and take a step toward the extraordinary. So let's unleash your potential. Now, here's Mick.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Mick Unplugged, and today we're diving into the world of conscious leadership, personal transformation, and the power of embracing the perfectly imperfect. Our guest is a visionary who's redefining success and empowerment, blending neuroscience, emotional intelligence, and spiritual wisdom to elevate and expand the lives of leaders, visionaries, and entrepreneurs worldwide. We're going to explore the journey of a remarkable figure in the realm of coaching, speaking, and transformative change. Please welcome the incomparable, the powerful Kelly Lynn Adams. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Mick, it is an honor and a privilege to be here.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And you know how we do, Kelly. We like to talk to our guests about the power of their because, the power of their journey. And one of the things that I love following you is no matter what, you keep going, right? No matter what, you have a message that's clear. And that's what I love, right? Like Kelly is dynamic. Kelly is powerful. So I'd love for you briefly to talk to people about your journey, like who you are, what you're doing, and why Kelly is Kelly.
Yes, I love that, Mick. And you're so absolutely right. I would say resilience is my superpower. And just from all the struggles, and I'm sure everyone listening will have a struggle or two. However, my journey started on Wall Street, climbed the corporate ladder then for 20 plus years in the fashion industry and retail, and I was doing finance, strategy, and HR. And I burnt out, landed in the hospital because I was overworking. I had a work addiction, and I always wanted to be like recognized, right? The harder I worked, the more recognized I was. So was out of work and out of commission, really didn't get out of bed for 2 months. And I was like, what am I doing? And at that point, I was climbing the corporate ladder and I was building my coaching and speaking business. So I was working all the time, but I did play hard as well.
There you go.
And I got to make a decision. I was like, what does Kelly want? What am I here for? And it was really to leave a legacy. And I know that sounds very general, but leave a legacy for the next generations to come. But I wasn't modeling that. And so I really got to do more of the healing work around a lot of my struggles and triumphs and overcame them. And then I went full time in my coaching and speaking business. And there's a whole lot I could tell through that journey. But yeah, I'm really here to make an impact, right? I think there's so many people that are struggling or going through things or that really want to amplify their life. And you can. Anything's possible.
That's right. That's right. I always say behind every influential leader, there's a powerful because. There's that moment. I know you were going there, right? Like there's that moment, like there's that why behind the why. What's Kelly's because? Like what drives you every day to empower others on this journey with you?
Yeah. My because is just to love people so deeply. Even when I'm coaching and speaking, it's like this yearning that I see in a lot of people is just they want to be loved. We all just want to be loved. And a lot of us are going through certain things, right? Like I just went through a passing of my grandma, my last grandparent. And so we'll have these things in life that come up. Sometimes we're not seizing the moment or, it's just, I think, and in coaching, this is what I'll step back and say, there's 3 things that I always tell my clients that people want. They want to feel seen, they want to feel heard, and they want to feel acknowledged. So what does that all boil down to? It's love. So that is my mission, is really to like lead with love in every situation that I enter, and in every room I enter, in every conversation I enter, even if it's the tough conversations, because when I coach, I am tough. But it's in the service of transformation.
I love that. I'd love to go a little bit deeper on seen, heard, and acknowledged. And for everybody that's listening, I'm writing a bunch of notes, and I hope you are too, because Kelly's dropping a lot of good nuggets here for us. So break that down. They want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to be acknowledged. Like, how do you go deeper into that?
Yeah. Well, just think. Why do we do what we do? Why do you do what you do? People buy luxury items. Why? Right? I come from the luxury space. A lot of times it was like, to feel a certain way, to impress someone else, to enjoy the luxury, right? They want to feel that seen or that acknowledgement, that importance. Being heard sometimes, right, you and I both know that when we speak, sometimes we can speak and have all the greatest intentions, but it's actually what the other person hears.
Correct.
So I might be talking on this podcast right now, and people may be listening to their own consciousness or their own perspective. However, it's
Correct.
really great to be like, okay, what did you hear? And allowing people to, because I think a lot of people, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but
Yeah.
sometimes they're not heard or they're not listened to or they're not shown appreciation and love. And it can be in the professional setting and the personal setting. And sometimes we just go through life, right? And there's so much noise now, right? With social media, Amazon, Prime, Venmo, like
Right.
it's AI, all the fast, 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 fast. And so it
Right.
causes, right, this, well, do you see me? Do you hear me? Do I even matter? And so that I think to the core is like the love, right? Like
Yeah.
I just want to be loved.
Yeah.
And that's what I have found, even and it's also the conversation of, am I good enough? Am I worthy enough?
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so whenever I dive deeper with clients in a coaching situation or even in conversation, that's really like it's like, am I loved? Am I good enough? It's like that always comes up to some level if we really dive deeper down. And the answer is always yes, right? Because you see a baby, when we see a 2 year
Correct.
old, right? We're like, oh my gosh, it's just pure love, pure
Yeah.
innocence. And so we were all 2 years old at one point, and then life and we start to experience life and things happen for us. And so
Mhm.
because when we come, and I like to talk about, and I'm sure the listeners know about, like the dash, it's that poem where you enter the world and then you leave this world, and then everything in between, you create your own dash.
Life is the dash,
Life is
right?
the
Yeah.
dash. So it's like, how are you living your life? And if you're not feeling love, how can you actually give it to yourself? So it's also like
Mhm.
a conversation of, can I reparent myself? Can I actually give myself what I need now? And once that is answered, and we're all gonna have like those moments. There's seasons where I'm like, oh, I don't feel loved, I don't feel enough, I don't feel confident, I don't feel worthy. And it's like, oh, let me
Mhm.
remind myself, I was a 2 year old. I am the
Right.
baby, I am the child. So I know we're getting down kind of a rabbit hole, but I think people really need to hear that, because a lot of times either we're getting beat down or life is lifing and we're in different
Right.
seasons. Like some people might be flying high right now and it's like every day is the best day of my life. And then some people are like,
Mhm.
I'm just getting through it. And I always like to say there's
Yep.
not a bad day. There may be a bad hour, there may be a bad minute, but we can always
Mhm.
change. We have the power and the choice and the decision to change in every moment. So that's what I really, when I was going through, when my grandma was like dying, it was a really tough situation. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, like there, and I was seasons, every day was like a roller coaster. It's like, I get to choose, I get to feel my feelings, I get to go through this experience, and I
Yeah.
get to also be in celebration of life. So
Mhm.
it's a choice, and the powers and the perspective always.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. And following like I do and seeing all the things that you've either published or that you're doing on social, I know that love, trust, family, and connections are core to your values, right? Like they're your core values or core to your heart. How do you use those values and how do they shape your approach to coaching and leadership?
Yeah, I always say the person in front of me is the most important person. Or if I'm on a
Mhm.
stage, the people in the room are the most important person, right? So
Right.
really leading with those values and making them non-negotiable. So if something
There you go.
comes in and it's like, nope, that it's not aligned to my values, I can make decisions quicker. So,
Yeah.
and it's really like it's an intuitional thing at this point. I always tell people, listen to your intuition, because you can have a mentor, you can have a coach, you can have the person who is the master genius of X, Y, and Z. But if it doesn't
Right.
sit well with you, and that's why it's like always know what your values are. And if you don't know what they are, you kind of know what your gut says, right? In each situation.
Mhm.
So even if you don't have these like 5 or 3 core values, it's like, okay, what
Yeah.
am I feeling in this moment? So that always leads me whenever I take opportunities, whenever I'm asked something, however I move in the world. It's like, okay, what is true for me? And I take a step back and
Mhm.
then I decide from there. But intuition
Yeah.
has never steered me wrong. And I just always trust. And sometimes I have not trust myself. And it's been a situation of rebuilding that trust with myself, right? And not having,
Mhm.
oh, if I made a wrong decision, not making me bad or wrong or anything like that. So that has also been a lesson for me.
I love it. I love it. So I know you talked about resiliency being one of your superpowers. I think one of your other superpowers is helping individuals break through glass ceilings, as you like to call it,
Yes.
right? Can you share a story of how you've helped someone conquer something that they didn't believe that they had in them? Or, you talk about having bad moments and days and how you can get someone out of that rut and get them to where they need to go.
Yeah. So one of my clients, very successful. She was actually speaker and very, very successful. Like you would never, she had it all together, right? For the
Mhm.
outside of when you look outside in. Yet
Yeah.
she was very, very like traumatized, actually. To not traumatized, but she was every time she entered a virtual room or a stage, she would she would actually be like, okay, who is judging me right now? Like it was this
Mm.
overwhelming sense of who's judging me, and it was like getting in the way of her talking and speaking and really showing up fully, even to the point where she was looking also like at her, like just her image, how much she weighed, what she looked like, what her hair looked like, really. So it was holding her back from a lot of things. And so again, diving deeper, it's like, okay, well, what is occurring here? Right. And we found out it's like, oh, okay, some of the things happened in childhood, right? And that like the
Mm.
bullying, there was bullying going on, there was all these things. And so that's why
Right.
like the things that are happening for you is really to strengthen you, for the resilience. So when we found out where it was stemming from, what I do in my coaching is I do a little bit of what we call like edging or experiential coaching, where it's like, okay, we're going to actually face the issue with the issue, right? So it's like
Mhm.
building that muscle.
Yeah.
So what we did is I had her speak even more, right? Go to more events, get on more stages. And like until it was like, oh, that muscle of confidence, and because she did it over and over and over and over again,
Right.
and lowering the noise in her head. So it was more of like what's in your head, but also practical of being in the situation. Because my whole premise is it's definitely mind, body, and soul. Like I think the mind is
Mhm.
powerful, and the body is equally powerful. So and the soul, right? So it's putting all those three in alignment and then just doing the thing. So she overcame that. That's what I would consider a breaking the glass ceiling. Also, I work with women in making more money, right? Making more money in their glass ceiling of break. Okay, how much more do you want to make? But it's really who
Right.
you're being. People are like, okay, well, I want to get to the $1 million mark or the $1 billion mark. It's like, well, who are you being in order to get to what you want to get to?
Mhm. Yeah. And then I'm going to take that a step further because one of the things that I tell people is, or I ask of them, is this something you want or something you must have? Because if it's something you must have, there's an inner grit
Yep.
that drives you to get there. If it's something you want, you write it down, but you don't work towards it. If it's a must have, then that's really going to drive you to where you need to go. So I parallel that with you completely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that is definitely a drive. And it's like because at the end of the day, when we all die, no one's gonna remember us like 2 years after or 10
Hmm.
years after. So it's like what impact, and that's what drives me, is like what impact do I want to make when I leave
Yeah.
this earth? Like what is the mark that I want to leave? But also in my life, like every day. Like how am I creating?
Hmm.
How am I being a ripple effect in other people's lives and in this world right now?
Right.
And
Right.
you find that everyone has that grit. Everyone can call upon a moment where they're like, "Oh no,
Right.
I've gotten this far. I can do it." Right. And some people, I think,
That's right.
in the brain, and I'm sure you know this, right? The brain deletes and distorts, and then is like, "Okay, I'm going to find everything that why I can't." It's like, nope. Finding evidence every day, becoming like an FBI agent of the evidence of what you have overcome to get up to this point.
Right.
Because everyone,
That's it.
I don't care if you're in a state of huge depression right now, you have
Hmm.
gotten up to this point. So you have gotten here. And
That's it.
yeah, and I love to tell people that, or really, show people too, and myself, like I've gone through huge anxiety and depression. But it's like, you know what, Kelly? I'm going to find evidence of how I've gotten up to this point and the wins
Right.
and accomplishments and really celebrating. And that's another tool that I bring my clients through is like, can you celebrate and appreciate and gratitude and all of that like every single day, even if it's for like 5 minutes or
Right.
a minute or 20 seconds?
Right. Yeah, you have to celebrate small wins, right? Like we're all winners at heart. And if you don't celebrate the small wins, you're only looking for big ones, which don't come as frequently as the small wins do. So I totally love that too. And for those that don't follow Kelly, definitely make sure you're following Kelly because one of the things that I love, and I want Kelly to unpack this, you talk about the role of inner freedom, right? And personal freedom is something that is constantly woven into your work. So talk about that inner freedom or that personal freedom and how you're guiding your clients into discovering that
Yeah, I'll
piece.
share a story of actually what an exercise one of my coaches had me do. And I'm here, I'm speaking, I'm coaching, I'm showing up. Everyone thinks, oh, if you go to my social media, you're so visible. You write for articles and all the things. And so my
Right.
coach is like, he's like, you're not being visible enough. Like, what do you mean? Like, there was something still like the judgment of people, and still there's like that layer, right? We all like, oh, like, am I being judged? So what he had me do was he's like, no, I want you to act like a fool. Like who cares what people think? So he had me go on this, was it 5 day challenge where I had to act like a fool. I had to pick a playground where children were and in the prime time and literally scream and jump and dance and like act like really wild. And I
Right.
had to videotape myself. And then like send it to him. And I was like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm a 40-year-old. I am not doing that. And I'm like, why? That's so embarrassing. I'm like, what if they think I'm, legit? Like, what if the cops think I'm crazy? So, yeah. So the first day I drive to a park, children's park, and there was a wedding going. It was a Sunday wedding going on, all these people. And I'm like, I am not getting out. It took me an hour and a half to even get out of my car. And then, so this is when I was like, oh my gosh. Then it took me I got out of the car. It took me another 45 minutes to get into the park. And then I was waiting for like the wedding party to leave. I was waiting for like all these people to like die down. No, just more people kept coming on a Sunday afternoon. And I was like, I am
Wow.
not. And then I saw a cop like walk, the park ranger or whatever. I'm like, I am not doing this. So I was like, Kelly, just do it.
Mhm.
Cause I owed this video. So I screamed, I danced, I acted like a fool for a minute. Cause I'm like, this is like ridiculous. And I was like, oh my gosh. It was like a full, that's why I said body and mind. Sometimes the mind is saying, no, I'm not doing that. Mind is like, that is not safe. That is not comfortable. And the body's like holding me back. So
Yeah.
day two, day three, day four, it actually got easier. So I didn't get out of my car. I waited 30 minutes to get out of my car day two. And I did the same. I didn't go to the same park.
Right.
So what
Right.
that did was like, oh, I don't care. And people were looking and people were like, what is she doing? I'm sure. I was like, I don't care. Day 5 came and I was like in the middle of the street. I didn't care. Like, I was just like, whatever, it's day 5. I'm going to do it. And I don't like, and so it just opened up this internal freedom of being like, you know what? You're always being judged. We're being judged right now. The brain
Mhm.
judges for safety and security. Like, is that a threat? Is that not a threat? So you will
Yeah.
always be judged. So how can we, if we're always being judged, how are you going to create a path, right, that has you be as free as you can? And there's different layers to it, right? Because right now, if someone was
Mhm.
like, okay, go do this, there's different layers to the onion. So
Right.
it's not like, oh, I'm all about inner freedom. It's like, but I'm chipping away at it. And that's what you get
Yeah.
to do, right? In life. You just become more. And I don't know, for me, I found the older that I've gotten, I'm like, you know what? The less cares I have, right? So,
There you go.
yeah.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome. So what song were you singing each day?
Oh
You
no,
were
I
screaming
had
and
to just
singing.
act like a fool. I
What's
was
your
just like,
go-to song?
nah, like I had to scream and there was no song. There was no like hiding behind anything. There was just I had to scream and jump and like celebrate. I was like, oh my gosh, that's why I'm like, they're gonna all think I'm crazy. And I would challenge the listeners, where can you like really step into a little bit more free? Because that is shattering your own glass ceilings too. It's another layer. Like, where do you
Mhm.
care, or where do you feel like you're being judged, or where can you just do something so spontaneous? Now we don't want to,
Yep.
don't get fired or anything, or don't, but
Right.
where can that freedom, right, exist and live within you? Because again, going back to the 2-year-old, they don't care. They play with sticks
Mhm.
and dirt and they like, and they don't, they're just free. They're just
Yeah.
alive, right? So we all,
And no one judges a 2-year-old,
no one just is,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So they're not gonna judge you. That's Kelly's message. No one's gonna judge you.
yeah.
So one more thing, Kelly, you talk about conscious leadership, right? What does that mean to you and how is that evolving? How are you seeing conscious leadership evolve in society today?
What it means to me, conscious leadership, is that everyone is coming in with their own perspective. So, how
Hmm.
can we listen more? How can we understand more? Even if we agree to disagree, how can we just be more loving and more empathetic in everything that
Yeah.
we do?
Yeah.
So, it's just being more open and listening, right? And just being
Hmm.
curious. Like, oh, I wonder
Yeah.
why that person is acting the way that they are. Or I wonder why that comment was made. Or I wonder why that action
Hmm.
was taken. So just with
Hmm.
that level of consciousness of just being curious, like, can you be curious? Even if someone maybe triggers you or rubs you the wrong way, or get curious about it. So to me, that's what consciousness and conscious leadership is. Like, that's one layer of it, and one level
Yeah.
is, can we get
Yeah.
curious? Because you are going to have things that, rub you the wrong way or trigger you, because we all have different perspectives. So if we can just be more curious and listen, emotions will come up, but just get curious even also when those emotions come up. So that's what it means to me. And I see that in the world. And some people are like, well, I don't see that. Right. And it's also
Hmm.
what you choose to focus on. Right. So if you want to focus on, say, you want to drive a white Mercedes Benz and you put that in your consciousness, I bet you today you're going to see 5 white Mercedes Benz and wherever you go if you go
Yeah.
outside, right? So it's
Yeah.
okay. It's training yourself to see the world how you want to see it, and then create that. And because we are always creating, we are consciously creating every moment. So how can you
Hmm.
consciously create and then be that ripple effect in the world?
I love it because I tell salespeople almost that same thing every day, right? If you're trying to elevate your sales career and you're trying to grow, you've got to look in different places, right? Because if you only see $1,000 deals, that's all you're going to see, right? That's purposely all you're going to see. But if you want to start doing $100,000 deals, $500,000 deals, go start looking for them. And I promise you, that's all you're going to see. But you have to have the confidence and the courage to start looking bigger, right? So for salespeople, for leaders out there, start looking bigger. And the more you focus on it, the more that's all you're going to see. So I love that. I love
Yeah, and that's shattering
it.
your own
Kelly.
glass ceiling, right? It's like, what's the next ceiling that you can go to then, like, okay, yeah, what's possible? Anything, because it's all out there.
Right.
It's all the million
Exactly.
dollar deals. It's all out there.
All day long. What are three tips that you would give the listeners or the viewers right now? Like, what are three things that people can do if you're trying to break that glass ceiling? And whether that glass ceiling is depression, a new career, finding your purpose, right? What are three tips that Kelly would give people today to break your glass ceiling?
One, get curious.
Be
Be
curious.
curious.
Okay.
Two, do something different.
Mhm.
That could just mean getting outside for 5 minutes. Change something up. Do something different. Number three, love yourself unconditionally.
That's the big one. That's the big one. That's mm, that got me right there, Kelly.
Yep.
Love yourself unconditionally. So for everyone listening, it starts with loving you. If you don't love you, how can anything else? How can anyone else? Freaking love that, Kelly. That was awesome. So how can people find you? Where can they follow you? What's the next thing you have coming up? What's all that for
Yeah,
Kelly?
I have a lot of things coming up, but everyone can just go to my website at kellylynnadams.com and then go from there.
All right. And we'll have the link in the description of the podcast drop too. So everyone, kellylynnadams.com. Kelly, thank you for being amazing. You're awesome. You're a rock star. I can't wait to evolve our friendship. Like, you're one of the people that I follow the most on social, and loving everything you're doing on LinkedIn and Instagram. So thank you for imparting wisdom in me, even though you may not know it, but I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you, Mick, for having me. This has been an honor, truly. And thank you so much for all you're doing with this podcast. It's absolutely incredible.
I appreciate you. And for everyone listening, remember, your because is your superpower. Unleash it.
Thanks for listening to Mick Unplugged. We hope this episode helps you take the next step toward the extraordinary and launches a revolution in your life. Don't forget to rate and review the podcast, and be sure to check us out on YouTube at Mick Unplugged. Remember, stay empowered, stay inspired, and stay Unplugged.